Hi everyone! This is a compilation of 20 of my all-time favorite Kikopup trick tutorials. If your New Year's resolution was to train your dog more, well now you have no excuse.
Hi guys! Today's a very rainy day here in San Diego, so I thought I'd show you how to train a very simple and cute trick that requires very little space. Your dog does need to know how to stay in a sit or a down position, however. Oh, good job, Splashers. The first time I saw this trick was about 10 years by a trainer, Paris Saavedra, in Spain, and ever since then I've seen people using the trick, and I think is still a very adorable trick because it looks like you're making a connection with your dog in your routine, in your trick routine. So it's a very simple trick to train with your dog in a sit or a down. It depends on your dog what might look better for them, but I like the down position. So you ask your dog to stay in the down position, so wait, and then you walk behind your dog, and if your dog's not used to you walking behind them, then you can click them for staying in the position at first, just so that you get that stable position while you're behind your dog. Once your dog can stay happily in the down position while you're behind them, you're going to then start to move from one side to the other and click your dog for turning his head to the left and the right. At first it may take some time for your dog to think to look the other way, and if you have a dog with a very bendy neck, they might just look back at you like that, which is something that my terrier does. So once your dog is getting the hang of it, where you step to the left and your dog looks to the left, and you step to the right and your dog looks to the right, you can start to gradually move less and less. So just you leaning to the left or the right initiates the movement. Good. Good job. And then you're going to feed your dog in the direction that they face. Are you ready, Splashers? You can also practice it where you're turning back to back, so you're mirroring each other's movements. So Splash have already added a verbal cue, so once your dog is doing it, you can say the cue just before you move. So I can say, look right, look left, look right, look left. And if you want to get more advanced, once your dog's learned the cue, look right, good, look left, good. Look right, Splash, look right, look left, look right, look left. Awesome. Sit, wait, look, ready? Look right, good. Look left, look right, look left. Awesome. Cross and switch and cross.
How to teach light switches. You can either get a light switch at a hardware store or one of these that operates lights without any cords. What I'm doing here is putting a pen cap with poster tack in it on top of the switch so it makes the switch easier to turn on and off. I'm also using poster tack on the back of the light switch to make it secure yet easy to move. Click for touches. Hold the light switch up and click your dog for touching it with his nose. If your dog knows chin targeting or nose targeting, you can get the ball rolling by practicing those first before you begin the lesson. Luring, push, and off. Yes, you can free shape your dog to turn the light switches on and off, but in this video I'm going to show you how you can use luring. What I am doing is lifting the treat upwards so the dog's top of the nose turns the switch on, and pulling the treat downwards so the dog's chin turns the switch off and saying yes as the switch moves. What I am not doing is pushing the switch onto the dog. The dog is doing all the movement while the switch stays still.
Yes.
fading the lure. The next step
Yes.
is doing the hand gesture further and further away from the dog while still marking them for touching the switch. You can start to use the clicker now because the clicker won't be right next to your dog's ears.
Yes.
Once your dog is reliably turning the switch on and off with the hand gesture, you can add a verbal cue before you do the hand gesture. The next step is waiting the dog out. So ask for the behavior and wait. Click even the tiniest intention of the behavior. If your dog seems lost or frustrated, go back to the hand signal. Here you can see I reverted back to the hand signal with Tug when he started to do something weird with his back feet. Once your dog's getting it, you can also start to feed them away from the switch so they have to run towards the switch to turn it on. Here you can see I'm using the technique of withholding a click to teach the dog to turn the switch all the way down.
Yes. Push. Good boy. Go off. Very nice.
Putting it all together.
Go paws up.
Here you can see I'm using blatant luring to teach the dog to put his paws up in the area where the light switch is. First I'm doing it with a treat, and then I'm doing it with no treat in my hand.
Go paws up. Good boy. Go paws up. Good boy. Go off. What is?
Here you can see I raised criteria too quickly with Tug and confused him, so I had to go back a step and create interest in the light switch again.
Go push. Yes, good boy. Ready? Go off. Yes. Ready? Go push. Oops. Off. Good boy. Ready? Go push. Go push. Yes. Ready? Tug, go off. Yes. Tug, go push. Yes.
Kiko and Splash were trained to turn the light switches on and off using free shaping. I wanted to show with Tug that you can teach the same quality of behavior using luring. The footage of Tug in this video was taken from one single training session of 10 minutes long. Tug already understood the process of fading a lure and adding a verbal cue. If your dog doesn't know this, it might take a couple more training sessions to achieve these results. See you next time!
Hey everybody! Today's quick video is on how to train this adorable trick. Wish both paws. Awesome! It looks really good as the beginning or ending stationary pose of a trick routine or canine freestyle routine. Ready? Both paws. Sit pretty. Go hugs. Awesome! This trick is much easier to train if your dog already knows to sit pretty as well as use his left and his right paw for different behaviors. Wish sit pretty. Okay. Wave. Bye. Good job. It's much easier to use a prop at first than your own leg. You could use a teddy bear, a pillow, a dog toy, or a pool noodle to symbolize your leg at first. First, you're going to ask for your dog's paw, so her cue is wave. Next, you're going to hold out the object and ask for the same behavior. Wave. Good. So at first, you're going to click anytime the dog touches the object with the paw. Awesome. The next step is seeing if the dog will curl his foot around the object with one paw. Yes, kind of like that, Wish. So I'm going to hold the object out and click any time that the dog hits the object with the inside of their paw instead of the outside of the paw. So at first, wave, it's just going to look like they're swiping at the object. And then you're going to try and hold the object in a way that the dog might think to grasp onto it with their paw. Awesome. The next step is asking for the behavior while the dog is sitting pretty. Wish sit pretty, wave. Good. And you can mark the moment you see your dog using one paw and hopefully starting to use the other paw to hold on to the object. Now, Wish has actually learned this trick already, so she's making it look a little easier than it is. You might need to experiment with different props to see what makes your dog hug it with both paws. Are you ready? Sit pretty. Pretty. Good. Pretty. Good. Now you can use your arm or go straight on to using your leg if you want to do that, but I suggest wearing long pants or a long sleeve shirt so that your dog doesn't scratch you with their nails. Are you ready? Wish sit pretty. Good. Ready? Sit pretty. Good. You can see that, sit pretty, she's trying to rest her paws on my arm. That's okay. I'm just going to hold my arm in a way and wiggle it about until she thinks to grasp it all the way around with both paws like that. Now you can add your verbal cue. I like to call the behavior hugs. Are you ready? Sit pretty, hugs. Good. Now I'm going to see if I can just get it on the cue hugs. Are you ready? Hugs. Hugs. Good. Now you can practice the behavior standing up. If your dog is a little bit confused, you can go back to using your food lure. Are you ready? Sit pretty. Pretty. Good. Okay. Good job. To make the trick look cute, you want it to look like your dog is hugging you or you're inviting your dog to hug you. So you want to refrain from bumping into your dog to make your dog hug you. Instead, you put your leg out in front of your dog or you stand close enough to your dog that they can hug your leg without you having to bump them. Ready? Both paws. Good. The reason that you want your dog sitting pretty rather than standing up is it can kind of look like your dog is humping your leg if they're standing up. Also, if you have a very large dog, they can just lean on you with all their weight. So the sitting pretty trick, sit pretty, they're just holding onto your leg rather than leaning on you. Good job. Good girl. And now for some double dog tricks. So to teach them both to do it at the same time, I worked on them sitting pretty, sit pretty, next to me like this, okay, as the first step, and then seeing if they could do the same trick. Are you ready? Sit pretty, go hugs, good. Good job. Now I'm going to see if I can just get them to do it on the go hugs cue. Are you ready? Go hugs. And it didn't look as good. They've both done the exact same behavior, so they both obviously thought it was too hard. So I'm going to have to go back to sit pretty, hugs, good. And you can see they both got it right that time. It's fun when you train two dogs because you can see them make the same error sometimes, and then you can see that it's actually your fault that you didn't set the training up accurately and in small enough steps for them to understand what to do next. So that's why I think it's really fun to train two dogs at a time. Are you ready? Sit pretty. Both paws. Good. Today I'm going to show you how to train your dog to bow. Now I don't suggest working on bow and down at the same time, especially if you're using luring to train both of them, because they're very similar luring gestures. So I suggest first working on a down, and then when you get down on a verbal cue, start to teach your dog to bow. The first step is getting your dog to stand squarely without shuffling his feet around. So I'm going to lure Halo forwards and feed him a treat until his feet are pretty much lined up. And I'm just going to keep feeding him a treat like this for keeping his feet still. So I'm constantly feeding him, and now I'm going to start to move my hand away and click the moment that I move my hand away and bring the hand back and feed him a treat like that so that he's standing squarely and not moving around. Once you get to this step, you can start to work on the bow. So I'm going to move the treat at an angle into him like that, and I'm just going to mark a tiny little shoulder dip. And what I'm hoping for is that his feet won't move. Awesome. It doesn't matter if they move around a little bit at first, but what you're looking for is a little dip without any foot movement. Ready? Like that. I'm clicking the dip in his shoulders and feeding in the standing position so he doesn't think to go all the way into the down position after I click. Good. Once your dog is dipping a little bit and keeping his feet still, you can see if you can go all the way down to the ground and then mark and feed in rapid succession like this for staying in this position. And if your dog does think to go into the down completely, I suggest saying free or whatever his release cue is from the down position, and then feed for standing a little bit more, and then just work on the tiny little shoulder dip at first. Some dogs tire easily in the bow position, so if they're in this bow position for too long, they can start to get a little bit uncomfortable and they'll either stand up or lay down. So keep training sessions short. You ready? So I like to have a release cue for my bow. So I say bravo, like that, and then I say okay, and okay means to stand up again. Once the dog is reliably going into the bow position, I quickly add my verbal cue, and I like to use the cue bravo rather than bow because bow sounds like down. Are you ready? Bravo. Good. And now I'm going to release my dog. Okay. I like to use the cue okay to mean go back into the standing position, but you might want to choose a different word if you say okay all the time. Are you ready? Bravo. Good. Good. Okay. I'm also clicking and feeding him for getting out of the bow position and back into the standing position. Bravo. Good. And I'm clicking as I move my hand away. And because I'm giving him treats so quickly, he's eating the treat that I've just given him as I'm moving my hand away, so it makes it really easy for him to stay in the position and not follow my lure away as I move my hand away. So there he laid down, and I'm just going to say free and get him to stand up again. Good job. And then work on a little dip. Awesome. The next step is seeing if your dog will offer the behavior on a verbal cue. So what I like to do is do little repetitions where the dog is getting into the role of doing a behavior over and over again, and then I'm just going to say the cue and see if the dog offers the behavior without the lure. So I'm going to say bravo. Okay. Bravo. Okay. Bravo. And I'm going to click just the slightest dip and feed. So any type of offering, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to go back to luring. Good. Good. Okay. Good. Bravo. Good. Okay. Good job. Bravo. Good boy. Good job. So anytime he offers the behavior on just the verbal cue, I'm going to drastically reduce my criteria. And so if the behavior looks sloppy, I'm still going to mark whatever he does. I might even mark him laying down. And then I'm going to go back and make the behavior look nice by luring it again.
I wanted to show you how I teach the behavior of going from a down into a bow for dogs that just aren't getting it any other way. You need a nice soft couch that the dog feels comfortable laying down on. And what you do is, while they're in the down position, you simply pull the treat over the edge of the couch and click any back end movement. Awesome. What you're looking for is the dog is going to start raising their bum into the air as they reach for the treat. Now Kiko's got a very long neck. So here we go. Oh, there. Awesome. Now you want to feed the dog in the position unless the dog stands up. So if the dog stands up, you can just cue the dog to lay down again. Awesome. But if they're keeping their bum in the air, you can click and feed the dog with their butt in the air. So you're clicking the movement of getting into the bow, and you can click and reinforce your dog for staying in the bow. And good. Awesome. Good girl, Kiko. Oops. So I like to add duration right from the start so that the dog doesn't think it's just a movement of getting into the bow and laying down, unless that's the trick that you want. You ready, Kiko? When the dog is reliably getting into the bow position when you move your hand, then you can start to add your verbal cue. So you can say, bravo. Awesome. And I don't like to use the cue bow because I like to use the cue down for the position of laying down, and they can sound very similar. So curtsy is another one that my friend uses. Are you ready? Keep going. Bravo. Awesome. And down.
Tug bravo. Splash bravo. All down. Good. Splash bravo. Tug bravo. Tug down. Splash down. All bravo. All down. Tug bravo. Splash bravo.
Step 1. Get a toy sword, PVC pipe, or foam stick. We bought one for a couple of dollars. Step 2. Toss a treat over the sword and click as the dog jumps over it. It can help to have a mat to toss the treat to as well as a barrier so the dog doesn't just go around the sword. Step 3. pretend to toss a treat. This time, pretend to toss a treat, and as the dog jumps over the sword, click and produce the treat where the dog had expected it. Step 4. Let the dog think it out. After repeating the previous steps, your dog should predict that a reward will happen if he jumps over the sword. So click any movement of jumping over the sword. Perhaps your dog doesn't jump all the way over, but takes a step over. Click anything. Step 5. Increase criteria. Once your dog is getting it, you can ask for more jumps before each treat, as well as removing the barrier so the dog is learning to jump over the sword even though there isn't anything blocking him on the other side. Here you can see I'm removing the barrier completely and adding more motion to my sword swipes. You want to be very careful and respectful of your dog and make sure you go at the pace they need. Here is the final result of the sword fighting trick. You can be as creative as you want to be when playing with your dog. Splash and I are working on a canine freestyle routine that is based on the theme of pirates. And a sword fight is going to be part of the routine. Here you can see what a normal left-about turn looks like. The handler turns to their left, and the dog swings at the handler's side to their left. During the Schutzhund Turn, the handler is doing the exact same behavior, turning to their left, but the dog is doing a different behavior. The dog is going to circle around to their right, around the handler, and end up back in the heel position. The Schutzhund Turn is great to teach if you're going to be competing in rally obedience, but it's also a great canine freestyle move. As you turn to your left, lower your dog behind your legs with a treat in your right hand until they're back in the heel position.
Yes.
Say yes or click as the dog goes around the back of your legs.
Yes. And then with no treats in that hand, Kiko. Yes.
Now try it without the treat in your hand.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. And now you can add the cue.
To add a verbal cue, you want to say the cue just before you do your hand signal for the turn.
Around. Yes. Jump. Kiko. Around. Yes. Kiko. Around. Yes. Around. Yes. Perfect.
Today I'm going to show you a quick tip on teaching the trick cup cup, or as some people call it, your feet on mine. What I like to do is I lure the dog between my legs like this, and then I wiggle the treat to the left, good, until I see that the dog is touching my shoe with the foot that's next to that shoe. It's okay if they put both feet on that foot for now, because now I'm going to lure them to the right, good, and mark any touching of my foot with their foot. Good job. If your dog has a name for each paw, like left and right, you can cue your dog which foot to use by saying the cue for each foot. Ready, Kiko? So I've lured that foot on. Now I want to get the other foot on, so I'm going to lure the treat to the right. Good. You're going to mark and feed for your dog, remaining on your feet like that. Then when your dog is reliable at keeping his feet on yours while standing still, you can start to add a little bit of movement. Good. You can be as creative as you want to with canine freestyle. Here's a trick that involves cup cup that Tug came up with. Ready? Go legs. Go legs. Go legs.
So this trick, jumping through the hoop, we've been working on for about a week, and so I can go through all the steps on how to train it here with Wish. Now, with a dog that can get really excited about toys, I suggest working first on behaviors that can have a lot of enthusiasm, with food first, then get precision, and once you've got precision, then move on to using toys. So the first step is simply tossing the treat and seeing that your dog can find it on the surface that you're using. So she's really good at that. Earlier I was using cheese because it shows up easily on this card. Great. So once your dog's doing that, you need a barrier. So I suggest training jumping tricks outside on the grass where there's more of a cushion for the landing. So usually I'm working outside and I'll use a chair at first to train the barrier or fencing. So you need a wall, a chair, a tree, or some fence that you can use as a barrier, and you're simply going to toss the treat over your arm. Now, for some dogs, you might need to put your arm way down on the ground, like if you have a little Chihuahua. Also, be careful if your dog is used to jumping on chairs. I would suggest use a wall if your dog is used to jumping on top of platforms and things like that. So use a wall first so that you don't have a dog jumping on or at the chair. Okay, so when the dog is confident at going over your arm like this, I would lift the arm up just a little bit and see if you can get a nice little jump over that arm. Now that the dog is reliably jumping over your arm, you can add your marker where you're saying, good, that's exactly what I want. So if you want to use a clicker, you can hold it in the hand that is the beginning of your hoop. But if you don't have a very soft sounding clicker, or your dog isn't used to this, they can be quite alarmed that the click is happening right in their ear. So you can just use a marker word like yes. When your dog is reliably jumping over your arm, you can start to vary how high it is. So you can make it a little higher, a little bit lower, and get your dog used to it being something taller to jump over. Now you want to make sure you're tossing your treat far enough, because as you saw earlier, I tossed it too short and Wish had to do a handstand in order to get the treat. You want to get that muscle memory of taking a nice jump over your arm in anticipation of the treat being further away. You also want to start your dog jumping at a distance rather than right up next to your arm, because then they're going to do, it's going to be harder for the dog to jump over your arm at first. When your dog is reliably jumping over your arm, you can start to fade your treat tossing gesture. So what I like to do is pretend to toss a treat, say yes as the dog jumps, and then give a treat so that your hand signal becomes the signal to jump at first. Are you ready? Wishy, go get it. Good job. So this gesture, yes, without actually, yes, tossing the treat. So your dog might cotton on to the fact that you're pretending to toss a treat, so you can always go back and toss a treat. Yes! Yes! Good job! Awesome! The final step is to create a hoop with your arms and have your dog jump through them. Now, I suggest making a hoop like this rather than making a hoop like this. I find that this is more uncomfortable and you're blocking your face from whatever audience you have. So you do a hoop like that and you keep your face out of the way as the dog jumps through. Because if you look through the hoop, you might get a broken nose if your dog is big enough. If you have a larger dog, you could use a hula hoop, or if you have something else to hold on to, like a cane or a frisbee, you can make your hoop larger by holding on to something. Get the dog to jump through. Are you ready? Ready? Go get it. So actually I have two cues. Hop means jump over the arm, and jump through means jump through. Good.
Here you can see I'm working on the behavior outside with Wish, and I'm increasing the height that she jumps. When your dog isn't just stepping over your arm, it's important to warm your dog up before training as well as cool your dog down afterwards. If you're unsure about your dog's well-being, check with a physical therapist first before working on jumping tricks. This footage is taken a week after I filmed the tutorial inside my house, and as you can see, now that I'm using the toy, I can build enthusiasm for this jumping trick. Here are a couple of variations of jumping tricks. Check the written description below for links to my videos on how to train some of these variations.
Good. Keep jumping through. Good.
Good. Hop. Hop. Good. Jump through. Jump through. Jump through. This is not only a cute and impressive trick to teach tiny dogs, but it also builds little dogs' confidence.
Tag jump through. Kiko jump through.
Step 1. Lure with a treat. Here you can see I'm trying to lure Snuggles through the hoop created by my legs with a treat. If the dog tries to go behind you to get the treat, simply lure the dog through the hoop in the opposite direction, or wait till the dog tries to figure it out on her own. You want to say yes or click at the precise moment the dog jumps through your legs. If you're struggling to balance, hold on to something stable so that you don't fall over. Step 2. Lure with a pretend treat. Here I'm luring Snuggles through my legs with no treat, but I'm still going to say yes and present her with a treat, so that she learns that even though there's no treat, she still gets one. Be patient if your dog tries other ways to get the treat. Simply only say yes when the dog does the behavior that you like. Yes. Here you can see I was going to pet Snuggles as part of the reward for jumping through my legs, but as you can see, Snuggles backed away, so instead I just gave Snuggles the treat. If you have a dog like this, you can work on handling separately so your dog enjoys being pet. Step 3. Add a cue. Jump through. Say the cue before you do your hand signal.
Hi guys! Today I'm going to show you how I taught Splash to limp in a circle around me. This is an example I use in my seminars to show how you can add two tricks together to come up with something unique for your canine freestyle, frisbee, or trick dogging routine. So the basics are you train the two behaviors that you're going to add together and proof them. So in this example, limping and going around you in a circle.
To teach your dog to circle you, you can lure your dog around you, mark the movement, and feed just a little bit ahead of your dog so your dog isn't stopping when he hears the marker. When adding tricks together, it's important to overtrain. So if you're going to have your dog limp around you one time, then I suggest seeing if your dog can confidently circle you 5 times without limping. It's a good idea to teach your dog to circle to the left and the right, as well as limp on the left and the right paw, so both sides of your dog's body are getting an equal workout. It's going to take a few weeks of practice for your dog to have the strength to be able to limp a couple of steps. Keep training sessions short and fun, and don't forget to practice on a non-slip surface. One way that I train this behavior is to ask for a paw target and then lure the dog forwards with food or a toy. At first, it's going to look like just a stutter step forwards. The key to adding two tricks together to come up with a unique trick is reducing criteria drastically when adding the two tricks together. To do this, revert back to using your lure, hand target, and a high rate of reinforcement. I find it extremely helpful to have both behaviors on a verbal cue before adding them together.
Go around, go around.
The final step is fading your lure and hand target.
Today I'm going to show you how you can train the trick where your dog covers his nose with his two front paws. Now this will either be easier or harder for your dog, depending on their conformation and fitness. If you have a dog that can't sit pretty, you can teach the trick where the dog's sitting and covers their nose with one paw. I have a friend Jillian and River the Chihuahua on YouTube, and they have an amazing tutorial on how to train this trick. Now, it's very similar to how I'm going to train the trick with the two paws on the nose to show you guys, because the way that I've trained my dogs to cover their nose with their two front paws is by using free shaping, but for clients, some of their dogs are not at the level where they can think to use both of their paws and cover their nose, so you can use luring. And it's a method that is based on Jillian and River's one paw method. Are you ready, Wishy? Ready? Let's go again. Sit. Awesome. So the first step is having a really stable sit pretty position. Wish sit pretty, so your dog can hold the position for many seconds and be very comfortable holding that position. Okay. The next step is teaching the dog the say your prayers trick. Ready? Sit. Where your dog is sitting, they put both paws on your arm, and then you lower their head underneath their two paws like that. Good. So I call that move cover. Are you ready? Is it pretty? Cover. Awesome. If you want more detail on how to train the Say Your Prayers trick, it's actually in my Weekly Inspirations membership program on my website, dogmantics.com. Once your dog can duck his head down underneath his paws on a verbal cue when doing the Say Your Prayers move, you can then see if your dog might offer the behavior and you can capture it. Now, I like to have the dog laying on their side first to get them putting their own paw on their nose because they don't have to worry about supporting themselves or using muscles that haven't been properly built yet. So, are you ready, Wishy? So I'm going to lower her onto her side like this. Good job. And then I'm going to use the same cue that we used when sitting pretty, and I've also warmed her up by cueing her to say her prayers just before I've asked her to lay on her side. Are you ready? So now I'm going to say the same verbal cue, cover. Yes, and any movement of a paw towards her nose, I can mark with a verbal marker like yes, so good, or click. Ready? Cover. Good. So she's only covering her nose with one paw. I'm going to roll her a little bit good onto her back, and we've actually practiced this a little bit. Cover. Awesome. I can also have her free. Practice with my arm again. Both paws. Cover. Awesome. Good job. So, down. Back up a little. Down. Roll over and cover. Awesome. Good job. Roll over. Cover. Good. Once your dog has mastered covering his nose on a verbal cue while laying on his back or his side, you can see if your dog might offer just a slight paw movement towards his nose while in the sit pretty position. Are you ready? So we could warm up by doing the Say Your Prayers trick. Cover. Awesome. And now I'm going to see if I cue Wish to sit pretty. Sit pretty. Good. And I want to keep it a high rate of reinforcement in this training session, so I'm going to reinforce her for sitting pretty. And now I'm going to see if I can say sit pretty and then cover. Ready? Sit pretty, cover. Good. So did you see her two front paws lift up a little bit? I'm going to mark that. Ready? Sit pretty, cover. Awesome. Sit pretty, cover. Good. My good was a little late there. Ready? Sit pretty, cover. Cover. Good. Cover. Good. Pretty, cover. Good. Ready? Sit pretty and cover. Yes, good. Today I'm going to show you how I train Wish to nod her head like Splash can, where the dog isn't just looking down and up, but they're tossing their head back. Now, I at first was a little bit stumped at how I was going to do it, but then Wish actually showed me how to do it in a training session. So she was laying on the couch with some pillows, and I was cueing her to do a behavior, and then she thought I had said for her to roll over, and as she rolled over, I could see her head do the exact same gesture that Splash does when she nods her head. So I started capturing it. So I'll show you the process. If your dog doesn't know how to roll over, that's okay. You can simply just work on the head nodding behavior. But I will say that if you then want to teach rollover, it might be a little bit tricky because your dog might nod their head at you. Are you ready, Wish? If your dog already knows to roll over on a verbal cue, you can say roll over while your dog's laying on a non-slip surface and there's some pillows preventing your dog from actually rolling over. And the moment you're going to click is just the head movement up and back. Are you ready? So I'm going to say down, roll. Good. Down, roll. Down, roll. Good. Once I was reliably getting a little nodding gesture, I added my verbal cue, nod. So I would say, nod, down, roll. Good. Nod, down, roll. Good. Nod. Good. Down, roll. Good. Down, roll. Good. Nod. 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 Good. Ready? think people should subscribe to my YouTube channel? I've been getting a lot of requests lately on how I train Splash her dancing trick, and so I thought I'd make a video tutorial. It was about 8 years ago that I was in Spain doing some seminars, and I also got to hang out with some amazing trainers, one of them being Julia Fassi, and she has this amazing trick that she trained her dog Nana, where she sits down on the ground and her dog backs around her standing up multiple times, and I was just so blown away by how cool that trick was that I wanted to train Splash the same trick, but I added a little twist by getting her to sidestep around me, standing up, and I would dance in a circle in the middle just to make it a little bit different, but the credit really goes to Julia Fassi on this amazing trick. Not all dogs were built to be able to stand up on their back legs, for example my Chihuahua and my Terrier, so it's a good idea to get the advice from a physical therapist to see if this is an okay trick for your dog to do. It's also a really good idea to practice this trick always on a non-slip surface.
Step 1. Teach foundation behaviors. I suggest teaching your dog to stand up and the footwork separately before adding them together.
Good. Good.
At first, you can teach a supported stand where the dog's resting their front paws on your arm. Standing up is not a trick for puppies. Instead, you can work on the footwork and also teaching your puppy to sit pretty. Make sure your dog's warmed up, for example, walking around for 4 minutes on leash before doing short mini sessions. Don't worry if it doesn't look very pretty at first. I suggest clicking the moment your dog stands up and then feeding your dog with all 4 feet on the ground. If your dog puts his front feet down on the ground, he's giving you information that it's either too hard for him or he's tired. So listen to your dog and don't tell him he's wrong. Simply see if he'll follow the lure up into the air or give him a break and try again later. Now for the footwork. I suggest working on backing up, turning at your side, backward circles around you, and sidestepping as a first step before asking your dog to do similar behaviors while standing on the back legs. If you've added cues to the footwork, it can help your dog understand what to do when he's standing up and you're luring him.
Stand up. Stand up. Back up. Back up. Good. Side. 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 Good.
Step 2. Use luring or targeting to get a full circle. I suggest refreshing the footwork before seeing if your dog can do the movement standing up.
Good. Good. Stand up. Turn.
It's a good idea to train this trick in both directions so your dog's muscles are equally built.
Turn. Good. Ready? Stand up. Flip. 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 Good. Flip. Stand back. 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 Good.
This is how I originally trained Splash to turn, even though I was standing still or turning in the other direction. However, in my older age, I think I would use a target stick so I wouldn't have to bend over backwards. A target stick basically extends your arm. Step 3. Adding a verbal cue and removing the lure or target.
Stand up. Tornillo. 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 Yes. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to train the trick of sit pretty, which is not only good for building your dog's balance, body awareness, but it also builds your dog's core muscles, which is good for preventing your dog from injury to the spine during sports like canine freestyle, agility, or frisbee. So if you have a healthy dog, this is a perfect trick to train your dog so that it will protect your dog's body from injury during sports, but if you have a dog that has a pre-existing injury to their body, it's best to check with a physical therapist if this trick is going to be good for your dog or detrimental to your dog. Step 1. Lure the dog into the position. You want to practice this trick on a surface that has traction, like carpet or grass, so that your dog doesn't slip. And the first step is simply lifting a treat over your dog's nose and clicking or saying yes as your dog's feet lift off the ground. So most dogs don't have very many muscles in that area, and it can take 2 weeks to a month to build up the appropriate muscles to be able to sit pretty for 5 seconds. If your dog is a little bit uncoordinated, like Splash was when learning this trick, and tends to fall when you lure your dog, then you can support your dog while you're doing the exercise so that your dog is safe from falling and scaring themselves. If your dog is scared of being touched or restrained, then you need to work on that first, or not support your dog at all. So to do that, you can stand behind your dog like this and lure the dog into the sit pretty position, and your legs are there and your arm is here, protecting your dog from falling over. If the dog wants to get down, they can. It's not about forcing the dog into the position, it's about helping the dog from falling over. Good girl. Free. You want to make sure that your dog's back feet aren't crooked and that their spine isn't crooked while they're doing this exercise, because the whole point is to create equal protection on both sides of the spine with the muscles. And if you have them sitting incorrectly, you can actually be doing damage rather than good. So as you can see, when I'm luring Tug to sit pretty, sometimes his legs will swing outwards or he's not sitting straight. As you can see there, he's sitting on his side. So that's not good. So you want to lure the dog forwards and make sure that their feet are nice and straight and completely symmetrical before you lift the dog up into the sit pretty position. You want them to start practicing a straighter sit for their own good. Good job.
Tip: you can support your dog's weight with your arm or a chair when your dog is first learning the trick. This will help build your dog's balance and muscles without having to give the treat as frequently as when the dog is balancing on their own. Step 2. Remove the lure.
Once your dog can maintain the position for 5 seconds, then I would start to remove the lure. One way to get rid of the treat lure in your hand is to lure the dog into the position, say yes, and feed the treat, and then immediately after, pretend to get a treat, lure the dog into the position, say yes, and then feed them the actual treat. So your dog is learning that even though there's no treat in your hand, it still pays to follow that empty hand into the position. Look. Yes. Now if your dog starts getting suspicious and they're like, hey, there's no treat in there, then simply go back and use the treat again to lure the dog into the position, yes, and then do it again, yes, and then have no treat. Yes. Good boy. So another way of getting rid of a lure is luring the dog into the position, and then as you lift the treat above their head, yes, you're going to mark the dog for staying in the position while you move the treat away. Yes. And then the treat comes back. If your dog's feet go back down to the ground, simply don't mark. Yes. Or if your dog stands up. You can also use the clicker for this.
Step 3. Add a cue.
So to add a cue, you can turn your luring gesture into the hand signal for sit pretty. To do that, you lure your dog into the position, click and treat, and then you can fade that luring gesture into more of a hand signal. Tug, ready? Awesome. Tug, sit. Good boy. Good boy.
Adding a verbal cue.
To add a verbal cue, you can simply say the verbal cue before you move a muscle to do the visual cue. So I'm going to say, he already knows sit pretty, so I'm going to change it to meerkat, and then do the hand signal. Good job. Meerkat, and then do the hand signal. Awesome. Meerkat, and then I'm going to click him offering what he thinks might be the behavior, and it looked almost like a sit pretty, so I clicked it. Then you don't always want to make it harder and harder, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to lure the behavior and get some really good repetitions of the behavior I like before making it harder. Sit pretty. Good girl. Sit pretty. Yes. That's it. Good girl. Once your dog is a master of sit pretty, you can then add duration and a release cue. So your dog can sit pretty until you tell them the release cue, for example, free. Splash, sit pretty. Good girl. Free. Awesome.
Step 4. Proofing. If you want your dog's sit pretty behavior to be a reliable behavior, you need to do some proofing. Here are some examples of me proofing the behavior with the distraction of food. These are some tricks that can be trained after teaching sit pretty. Don't forget to subscribe to channel Kikopup.
In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can teach your dog to weave through your legs. Now, there are many different ways to train this behavior, but I find this method the easiest. I have a couple of treats in both of my hands. I'm using his small puppy kibble so I can give a lot of treats while he's first learning the behavior. And I'm just going to put the treats down like this in a little Hansel and Gretel trail, so he's starting to learn what is going to be happening, which is that he'll be going through my legs like that. The next step is making the trail have less and less treats. So I'm going to put one there, 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 like that. Good job. When your dog is in front of you, you're going to put your right hand behind your right leg to lure the dog through your leg. I would drop a treat at your foot and then in front of you, so you have time to put your left hand behind your left leg, lure the dog through, put a treat there, and then again in front of you so you have time to pick your dog up. The reason that I'm putting the treats down on the ground like this is to give me time to put my hand behind my leg, or as the next step, take a step forwards. So I'm going to feed over here, take a step forwards, pick the dog up, drop a treat, take a step, show the next treat. Good. 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 Once your dog is reliably going through your legs to follow a lure, you can then add more steps. So you're going to lure the dog forward 2 steps, feed, and then if your dog has never done 2 steps before, I suggest drastically reducing criteria and making it easier. So you just do like a little Hansel and Gretel trail, and then see if you can get the 2 steps again. Good job. And then 1 step. Good. Another step. Good. 3 steps. Good. 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 With any type of behavior that involves movement, you want to mark the movement and feed ahead in the direction that the dog's going. So if they're weaving your legs like this, you're going to mark, good, and then feed so the dog thinks to keep going. If you mark and feed for the dog standing still like this, where they go between your legs and then stand still, good, then you get a dog that will stop and then go and weave your legs. If that's something that you want, then you can mark it. But if you want a fluid movement, you're going to mark the movement, good, and then feed in the direction the dog is going, good. There you go. Once your dog can weave your legs a few steps before receiving a treat, you can then try with an empty hand. So instead of asking for multiple steps, go back to asking for just 1 step where your dog weaves your legs. So I'm going to show him my empty hand, good, mark, and then feed. Now I've switched the treats into my other hand, good, and feed. Good job. Good. To get rid of your hand signal completely, you can start to put your hand behind your leg where your dog can't see it, but they see that you've moved your hand behind your leg like that. Good. 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 I I suggest adding a verbal cue to this behavior so your dog doesn't get confused with any other trick that involves you walking forwards or standing stationary if you do a stationary leg weave. Are you ready? So my cue is legs, so I'm going to say the cue just before I take a step forwards. So I'm going to say legs. Good. And if the dog doesn't go through the legs when you just take a step forwards, you can revert back to using the lure. So I'm going to say legs. Good. Legs. Good. Legs. Good. Legs. Good. When training tricks, I like to start off with the dog doing slow, precise movement, and then when the dog has mastered the trick and you want more speed, you can start asking for the trick while using toys to encourage the dog to move faster. But I don't suggest to try and get speed first with leg weaving, because what can happen is you can build in too much excitement, so when you start to use the toys or try to get more duration for the behavior, so asking for more steps, the dog can get too excited and start whining and barking. So some people might think Halo is looking really slow as he weaves through my legs right now, but you'll see later when I start using toys, it's going to turn into a fast weave where he's not too overexcited as he does the behavior. Step is teaching the rear end awareness exercise. I suggest adding a verbal cue for your dog turning clockwise as well as anti-clockwise. So for me, when I turn her this way, I call it turn. Good. And the other direction, I call flip. Awesome. So when your dog can do that, you just take away the platform and retrain the behavior without the platform. So you're going to have to go back to basics, and you're just going to mark the tiniest little turn in the right direction. Turn, yes. And on the other side, flip, yes. And as your dog progresses, you can add more turning without the platform. Good job. The next step is teaching your dog to back through your legs. A very simple way to do this is have treats in both of your hands, lower your dog between your legs. If your dog is uncomfortable with this, you need to spend time teaching him to be comfortable between your legs by taking it slowly. But lower your dog between your legs. When he's comfortable with it, you're going to have two treats in both hands, and you're going to bring the treat behind your leg like this and mark the moment that the dog backs up to get the treat. So it doesn't matter which treat he's following. Ready? Where did it go? Yes! Good job! When your dog is getting really good at this, you can lure them a little bit further forwards like this, but not too far that their bum is in front of you, because then they might not back through your legs at first. So I've got her hips between my legs like this, and if she gets up, I'm just going to lure her forwards or replace her so that she's standing. Ready? So I'm going to pull the two treats back. Where did it go? Look, there it is. Good. Ready? And when she's got it, I can add a verbal cue, like back through. Good. Ready? Back through. Good. To get your dog back in front of you, you can simply lure them forwards with a treat and then give it to them. Then reload your hands so you have two treats in either hand and lure the dog back through your legs. I suggest feeding the dog from either hand so that your dog remains nice and straight. Ready? Back through. Good. The final step is adding the two behaviors together. So you have turning on one side and flipping for splash on the other side. And then you also have the behavior of backing through and following a treat from one side of your leg to the other. So here we go. You have your dog on the side that you're going to lure with. So she's on my left side. I'm going to lure with my left hand. I take a step back with the other leg. I say turn, and then I say back through. Awesome. And on the right side, I'm going to lure with my right hand, take a step back with my left leg, and I say flip, and then back through. Awesome. If you try to get your dog to back through your leg while they're right next to your leg, if you have a very long dog, it's going to be really hard for them to turn their butt through your legs. So if you have a huge, long German Shepherd, for example, you're starting your dog out here to turn between your legs. Awesome. Awesome. Then you can practice without the treats in your hand. Turn, back through, flip, back through. Awesome. Good job. When you add more steps, I suggest stepping first before luring your dog or cueing your dog to go through your legs so that you don't stand on your dog's tail or your dog's feet. Ready? Turn, back through, flip, back through, turn, back through, flip, back through. Good.
The first step is getting your dog interested in a stick. Here you can see with Trish, I'm clicking her for simply touching the stick at first. In this next step, I'm teasing Trish with the stick and hoping that she'll mouth or bite the stick, which I will be able to click. If you have a dog that's very unlikely to mouth an object that you drag around or tease the dog with, you can try using a hard dog bone that they like eating, and as the dog goes to bite the bone that you're holding, you can pull back on it and click for the dog holding on to the bone. Now that we've practiced a little bit with other objects, I'm going to try with the flag. I'm clicking for Trish taking the flag for only a second. You can practice getting the dog to take the flag in different positions, from standing up, sitting, laying down, or following you. The next step is teaching the dog to drop the flag on cue. So give the dog the flag, say drop, hold the treat in front of your dog's nose, and as they drop the flag to get the treat, click. Kiko was having a hard time holding the flag because it was plastic, so we wrapped a piece of string around it to make it easier to hold. Once your dog is holding the flag for longer periods of time, you can ask the dog to do different behaviors while holding the flag to proof the behavior. Most dogs will drop the flag as you ask for the behavior. That's okay. Simply click the behavior, for example a sit, and then give the dog the flag to take after they're sitting and hope that next time they might hold on to the flag. Here I'm showing how you can do a more complex trick. If your dog knows shake it, you can ask for the behavior first with the object they usually shake, and then get the dog to take the flag, and then ask for the cue, shake it, and you'll have a dog that can wave the American flag. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can teach your dog to have their picture taken on cue and also look happy about it. It might sound easy to take your dog's picture and have them look at the camera, but it becomes a little bit tricky if you want to be in the picture with your dog and you have to get your dog to look at a camera that someone else is holding. This can be even trickier if you have treats or your dog thinks he needs to pay attention to you. If you're competing in any dog sports and you also plan on winning, I think it's very important to train this behavior because if you happen to win, you're going to be hustled onto a podium with your dog in a stressful environment and suddenly forced to have your picture taken. Now, a lot of people love their dogs, but in this situation, it can be stressful and you feel the pressure to force your dog into looking at the camera. So what can happen is a lot of pushing and shoving, and what ends up happening is that the dog looks stressed and unhappy right in that picture where you want to be celebrating that you just won something that you love doing together. So instead of that, you're going to set your dog up for success by training looking at the camera as a behavior first. So in the picture that you're going to keep and you're going to show your friends, you're going to be looking happy and stress-free, and your dog is going to be looking happy and stress-free, rather than punished with their ears back, an open mouth grimace, or looking away, or yawning, or licking their lips, or having wide eyes. Slash it pretty. Look. Did you take a picture yet?
Yes.
Step 1. Teach a sit-stay or any other position your dog is comfortable with. Follow the link in the right-hand corner if you have not yet seen this video on how to teach a sit-stay without the use of intimidation. Step 2. While your dog is sitting, click your dog for looking at a treat that you place on a chair. At first, you can click or say yes as you move to put the treat on the chair without the dog getting up.
Good job.
Step 3. Point at the treat and click your dog for looking at it.
Awesome. Good girl.
Step 4. If your dog is reliably looking at the treat when you point without getting up, you can add the verbal cue, look.
Good girl. Awesome.
Step 5. Add a person with a camera. Have the person hold the treat near the camera or put the treat on the camera and click your dog for looking.
Good girl.
Tips for if your dog won't look at the food or the camera. 1. Release the dog to go and eat the treat from the camera person so your dog's focus is forwards. 2. Have the person wiggle the treat at first to get your dog's attention. 3. Have the camera person use your dog's attention noise.
Lacey, sit. Good girl. Okay, go get it. Good girl. Lacey. Look. Good girl. Look. Good girl. Good girl.
Step 6. Now see if the dog can look at the camera person without the person holding a treat.
Look, Lacey. Good girl. Look. Good girl. Good girl. Lacey, look. Good girl. Lacey, look. Awesome.
Step 7. Practice getting your dog into the right position for the photo without pushing or shoving. You could use luring, targeting, or giving your dog a cue that he knows.
So Lacey and I are practicing for when we're at the park and she's a little distracted, but we want to have her picture taken. So I'm going to practice luring her into the position that I want, getting her to sit, feeding her the treat, and then giving her the cue. Ready, Lace? Look. Good girl. Awesome job. You can also use an empty-handed luring gesture to get your dog in the right position. Get it. Sit. Sit pretty. Look.
Step 8. Get professional and proof for distractions.
Sit. You can also proof for distractions. Splash, look. Good girl.
To proof for distractions, you can use the same method that I used in the sit stay video to proof the sit stay.
Sit pretty.
You create the distraction and click as the distraction happens at first,
Look.
and then you can start to delay the click and ask for more and more.
Good girl.
If your dog looks back at you, you simply need to wait until he looks back at the camera, or if he doesn't think to look back at the camera, you just need to go back a step.
Look. Ready? Look. Sit pretty. Look. Down. Look. Stand. Sit. Down. Bravo. Look.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to channel Kikopup to show your support. You can also become a supporting member of this channel by clicking the join button or clicking the link in the description below. See you later, guys.